Sitting at the kitchen table, I absent-mindedly pushed a dry, overcooked piece of chicken around my plate with my fork. Jessica had made it earlier, but it was as flavorless as our conversations had become. The meal didn't matter, though. My mind was somewhere else, stuck on the message I had seen on her phone. A single, damning text. "Last night was unreal. I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" Those words had burned into my brain, replaying over and over as I analyzed every letter, every possible meaning. I had been a fool. Looking back, the signs had been obvious. The sudden excuses to work late. The way she had started dressing up just to grab a coffee. The growing distance between us. How she had begun treating me like an afterthought. I had convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe she was just under stress. Maybe she was going through something. Maybe I was the problem. But that message, there was no maybe anymore. That wasn't stress. That wasn't just a phase. That was betrayal. I set my fork down deliberately, forcing myself to stay composed. There was no use in exploding, not yet. If she had been cunning, I had to be smarter. The sound of the front door opening sent a jolt through me. Jessica walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, her expression a little too bright, her breath a little too quick. A scent lingered around her, cologne, but not mine. She barely glanced at me as she dropped her bag onto the counter, acting as if everything were normal. "How was work?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She hesitated just for an instant. "Exhausting," she sighed, stretching as if she had spent all day in meetings instead of tangled up with someone else. Non-stop meetings. I barely had time to eat lunch. Liar. My stomach tightened, but I only nodded. "Yeah, I bet," I muttered, pretending to focus on my plate. I casually mentioned that I planned to go for a drive later. That's all I told her. What I didn't tell her was that I had spent hours setting up a hidden camera in our bedroom. Small, discreet, positioned perfectly so she'd never notice. The feed linked directly to my phone. No more suspicions. No more doubts. I needed the truth, and I was going to get it. 2 blocks from my own house, I sat in my parked car, phone in hand, watching the live feed. The angle wasn't perfect, but it was enough. I could see the bed, the doorway, the closet. If she brought someone in, I'd see it. Jessica had kissed me goodbye earlier, her fingers running through my hair, pretending like she still cared. "Drive safe," she had said with artificial sweetness, as if she wasn't about to let another man into our bed. I watched the screen, my heart pounding. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Just an unmoving image of our room. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe she wasn't cheating. Maybe I was losing my mind. Then movement. Jessica entered the room, phone pressed to her ear, pacing. She looked nervous. Though her voice was low, the camera picked up enough. "Yeah, he just left. No, we're good. You can come now." She paused, biting her lip. "Of course, I missed you. Just hurry." My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. There it was. The confirmation I had been dreading. Minutes dragged by. My breathing felt too loud in the silence of my car. Then, another figure stepped into the frame. Tall, dark hair, moving with confidence. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I saw enough. Jessica smiled at him in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She wrapped her arms around his neck, whispering something I couldn't hear. He laughed. A burning sensation spread through my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to drive back, storm inside, flip the bed over, throw him out. But that would be too easy. She thought I was a fool. She thought she could lie to my face, sneak around behind my back, and never get caught. She was wrong. I started my car and drove off into the night. Not home. Not yet. Let them get comfortable. Let them believe they had won. Because when I returned, I wouldn't be the man she thought she could deceive. For nearly an hour, I drove aimlessly, my mind racing through every possible scenario. I could already imagine Jessica's face when she realized she was caught. The panic in her eyes, the desperate, empty excuses she would try to throw at me. But none of that mattered anymore. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't demand explanations. I was going to do something she would never expect. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, needing time to think. The neon sign buzzed faintly, casting a dull green glow over my hands as I gripped my phone. I opened the live feed again. They were still in the bedroom. Jessica was curled up next to him, tracing slow, lazy circles on his chest like they had all the time in the world. They were laughing, like this was all just a joke to her. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to control my breathing. Losing my temper now wouldn't help. If I stormed in, she'd just play the victim, tears, excuses, and the classic attempt to turn the blame on me for setting a trap. No, that wasn't the way. I needed her to expose herself completely and undeniably. That's when the idea struck me. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to her contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. She wasn't expecting me to check in. She believed I was out, taking time to clear my head. But how would she react if I suddenly decided to come home? I pressed call. On the live feed, she shot up instantly, eyes widening in panic. Scrambling for her phone on the nightstand, she stole a glance at the man beside her before answering, her voice dripping with forced casualness. Hey, babe. The absurdity nearly made me laugh. She had another man in our bed, yet she still had the nerve to call me that. Hey, I replied evenly, keeping my voice calm. I was thinking of heading back. Maybe we could talk. Her body stiffened. I saw it. Her free hand clenched the sheets as she scrambled for an excuse. Oh. Actually, I just got in bed, she said, forcing a yawn. I'm exhausted, babe. Maybe in the morning. I watched the screen, watching her lie to my face in real time. The guy beside her smirked, utterly unconcerned. I decided to push. You sure? I asked. I could be home in 10 minutes. Panic flickered in her eyes. She glanced around the room, likely calculating whether she had enough time to sneak him out. I mean, if you really want to, she hesitated, her voice tightening. But I was hoping to just crash early tonight. Liar. I let the silence drag, waiting for her to squirm. Then, as casually as possible, I said, that's funny because I'm looking at you right now. Everything about her froze. The color drained from her face, her lips parting in silent shock. Her gaze darted around the room as if she could sense my presence, as if she knew the walls were closing in. What? She finally managed to stammer. I smiled. I said, I repeated, slow and deliberate, I'm watching you. Right now. The man beside her sat up, confused. He muttered something, but Jessica wasn't listening anymore. She was unraveling. Leaping out of bed, she clutched the blanket around her, as if that could somehow shield her from the truth. Her frantic eyes darted around, searching. She knew. She was caught. I ended the call. Then I started driving home. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I could already picture the chaos inside. Jessica, running in circles, desperately trying to erase any trace of him, searching for the camera, knowing full well that there was no undoing what had just happened. She knew she had been exposed. I stepped out of the car and inhaled deeply before heading toward the front door. I didn't rush. Let her sweat. Let her panic. Unlocking the door, I stepped inside. The house was unnervingly quiet. Too quiet. Then, movement. Jessica appeared at the end of the hallway, barefoot, wrapped in one of my hoodies, her hair a mess. Her eyes were wide, her chest rising and falling too fast. I could practically hear her heartbeat thundering. Hey, she greeted me with a forced smile. You're back early. I didn't answer. She knew that I knew. She was stalling. I tilted my head, feigning confusion. What's wrong? You look nervous. Her mouth opened, then closed. She glanced toward the bedroom door, our bedroom door, like she was waiting for something. Or someone. Nothing's wrong, she lied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I thought you were out for the night. I took a step forward. She instinctively stepped back. Did you clean up? I asked, my tone steady. Her breath hitched. What? I nodded toward the bedroom. Did you clean up the evidence? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. I don't know what you're talking about. I sighed. Jessica. She flinched. I had never called her that before. It had always been Jess. Always babe. But now? Now, she was just Jessica, a stranger standing in front of me, pretending she hadn't just shattered everything we had built. She let out a nervous laugh, trying to regain control. You're acting really weird right now. Maybe we should just... I pulled out my phone, opened the camera feed, turned the screen toward her, and hit play. The second she heard her own voice, her expression crumbled. Yeah, he just left. No, we're good. You can come now. She exhaled sharply, eyes darting wildly between me and the screen as if she could somehow stop what was happening. Of course I missed you. Just hurry. A strangled noise escaped her throat. She shook her head. I don't... I turned up the volume. There she was, plain as day, lying in her bed, whispering to him, the man who had been in our home, on our sheets. Jessica lunged for my phone. Turn that off. I pulled it back, watching her unravel, watching the moment she realized there was no escape. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just stood there, silent, staring at the woman I once believed I knew. I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. She had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. Then, a noise broke the silence. Just a faint creak, followed by the soft shuffle of movement, came from behind the bedroom door. Jessica's eyes darted toward the sound, her breath hitching in her throat. I caught the flicker of panic in her expression and felt a slow, knowing smile spread across my face. He was still here, wasn't he? In that instant, the facade she had been holding onto crumbled. Her lips parted, but no words escaped. She was trapped between the instinct to flee and the urge to fight. I turned my attention toward the door, my voice dropping into something low and dangerous. Come out, I commanded, my tone leaving no room for argument. I know you're in there. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the door inched open, just slightly at first, then a little more. My pulse pounded in my ears, but I stayed rooted to the spot, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. Beside me, Jessica remained frozen, her breathing shallow, her fingers twitching like she wanted to stop me, to take back control before everything slipped even further from her grasp. But it was far too late for that. And then he stepped into view, tall, dark-haired. Even now, he carried himself with smug arrogance, as if this entire situation was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. He had the audacity to smirk, as if I were the one intruding, just a nuisance in the middle of his night rather than the husband of the woman he had just been with in my own bed. He moved slowly, slipping his shirt on with an air of complete indifference. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't even sorry. Hey man. His tone was casual, dismissive, like we were old friends running into each other at a bar instead of standing in the wreckage of my marriage. I nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. Hey man. Beside me, Jessica let out a strangled sound, shooting him a desperate look that all but screamed shut up. But he wasn't finished making things worse for her. There's no need for all the drama, he added, rolling his shoulders as though preparing for a fight he assumed wasn't coming. We're all adults here. I exhaled slowly, gripping my phone so tightly that my fingers ached. Jessica suddenly stepped forward, hands raised as if she could still salvage this disaster, as if words could somehow erase what had just happened. Babe, she began, her voice laced with a false sincerity. I can explain. I turned my head toward her, tilting it slightly. Explain. She swallowed hard, her mind scrambling for an excuse. It's not what you think. My brows lifted slightly. Oh, I gestured toward the man beside her. So, you didn't invite him over? You didn't lie to me straight to my face when I called you? Jessica's lips trembled. She glanced back and forth between me and her so-called mistake, searching desperately for an escape, a lifeline that would keep her from drowning under the weight of her own actions. I was lonely, she blurted suddenly, her voice rising in desperation. You've been so distant lately. I didn't know how to reach you anymore. I made a mistake. Okay? A stupid mistake. I stared at her, feeling nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just emptiness. A mistake. A mistake was forgetting to buy something at the store. A mistake was accidentally sending a text to the wrong person. But this had been deliberate, planned. It had taken weeks, maybe even months of lying, sneaking around, convincing herself that she wouldn't get caught. And now she was scrambling to undo the damage she had inflicted. Look, I love you, okay? Jessica tried again, stepping closer. It didn't mean anything. He doesn't mean anything. It was just what? I interrupted, my voice eerily calm. Just fun? Just something to pass the time while I was out working hard to give you this life? What, Jessica? She bit her lip, gazing up at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. The perfect image of a woman seeking forgiveness. I almost laughed at the performance. Behind her, the man sighed dramatically, rubbing the back of his neck. "Listen, man," he started. "I didn't know she was married, all right? If I had known, I wouldn't have." Jessica spun around sharply. "Ethan." "Shut up, Ethan." The name tasted like poison in my mouth. I repeated it, letting the venom seep into my voice. "Oh, so he gets a first name?" I mused, shaking my head. "Nice to finally meet you, Ethan." He hesitated, realizing he had just made things even worse. "Good." I stepped back, slipping my phone into my pocket. I had seen enough. Jessica reached for me, her fingertips grazing my wrist. "Baby, please. We can fix this." I pulled away instantly, and she recoiled as if I had struck her. "Fix this?" I echoed, my voice quiet. "Jessica, the moment you let him into our home, you set fire to everything we built. And now you expect me to help put out the flames." Tears slipped down her face. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did." A suffocating silence stretched between us. I looked at her one last time, then at him. Ethan, at least, had the decency to look uncomfortable now. But I didn't care. I refused to waste another second in this house. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked toward the door. Jessica's voice wavered, catching in her throat. Where are you going?" I grabbed my keys, yanked the door open, and without looking back, I said the only thing left to say. "Somewhere you'll never find me." And with that, I walked out. I didn't stop until I reached my car. Once inside, I shut the door and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My ears rang, my chest ached, and my mind spiraled, replaying every single second of what had just happened. This was my home. My life. I had spent years building something with Jessica, trusting her, believing in the love we shared. And for what? So she could throw it all away for some random guy named Ethan? I released a slow, shaky breath, pressing my forehead against the steering wheel. The truth was out. I had undeniable proof. I caught her on camera. No more lies, no more manipulations, no more twisting reality to suit her narrative. She couldn't escape this. I should have felt victorious, but instead, it felt like my chest had been hollowed out, leaving behind nothing but a raw, aching void. The sudden creak of the front door snapped me back to reality. Jessica stumbled out barefoot, still wrapped in my hoodie as if she had any right to wear it. Tears streamed down her face as she ran toward my car, hands outstretched, desperation etched into every line of her expression. Through the windshield, I could see her lips moving, pleading, but her voice was muffled by the glass. "Please, just talk to me." I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, a sound that made her flinch as fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. She placed her hands firmly on the hood as if sheer willpower alone could stop me from leaving. I rolled the window down just an inch, just enough for my voice to reach her. "Move." She shook her head violently, her voice breaking. "No. Not until you talk to me. You can't just walk away from this." My grip tightened around the gear shift, my jaw locking in place. "Watch me." A sharp breath hitched in her throat. For a fleeting moment, something flickered in her eyes, fear. But it wasn't fear of me. It was fear of losing me. The realization barely registered. I didn't care anymore. I had spent months feeling unwanted, questioning if I was the problem, when in reality it had always been her. The lies, the secrecy, the sheer audacity of bringing another man into our bed, it all led to this moment. She deserved this. A figure appeared in the doorway. Ethan. He lingered there, watching from a safe distance, unwilling to intervene. He didn't try to help her. He didn't even move. Because he knew. He had already won. And then it hit me. Jessica wasn't crying because she loved me. She wasn't breaking down because she had lost someone she cared about. No, she was falling apart because she had lost control. She had played her game for so long, convinced that I would never catch on. Convinced that I would never be strong enough to walk away. She thought she was smarter than me. That I would stay no matter what. I looked directly into her tear-streaked face, my voice steady and final. "Move, Jessica." Her shoulders trembled, another wave of tears cascading down, but the resistance in her eyes had faded. She knew. She had lost. Slowly, she stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself as though she had only now realized what she had done. Without another word, I rolled the window up and pulled out of the driveway. I didn't look back. Not once. I drove for hours, the hum of the tires and the steady purr of the engine the only sounds filling the silence. No music. No GPS. Just the open road stretching ahead of me. My hands remained steady on the wheel, but inside, I felt like I was plummeting into an abyss. The life I had known, the love I had believed in, it was all gone. Jessica was no longer a part of my world. Not in the way that truly mattered. Physically, she was still standing in that driveway watching me disappear, but the version of her I had loved, the one I thought had loved me, had never existed. She had been nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, a character in a story she had written. And I had been the fool who believed it was real. I pulled into the empty parking lot of a gas station and cut the engine. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow. The anger had burned away, the heartbreak dulled to numbness. I was just done. Staring at my phone, I knew what I had to do next. There was no going back. No fixing this. No second chances. I opened her shared banking app. A few quick taps and my account was mine alone. She had no access now. Next, I forwarded copies of the camera footage to multiple places, my own accounts, cloud storage, even a few trusted friends. I wasn't about to let her rewrite the story when she realized I was no longer playing her game. Finally, I opened my messages. My finger hovered over her name, debating whether it was even worth saying anything. But I wanted the final word. I wanted this to end on my terms. I typed a single sentence. You made your choice. Now live with it. I pressed send. Within seconds, 3 dots appeared on the screen. She was already trying to respond. I blocked her before she had the chance. For the first time that night, I exhaled completely. I wasn't her fool anymore. I wasn't her responsibility. She was nothing to me now. And that, more than anything, felt better than revenge. The next morning, I woke up in a cheap motel room, my body stiff from a restless night, the weight of reality pressing down on me. The events of the previous night played out in my mind like a movie I wished I could shut off. But there was no escaping the truth. No waking up and realizing it had all been a nightmare. I had walked away from my marriage. And I wasn't going back. My phone sat face down on the nightstand, untouched. For a long time, I debated whether or not I should even check it. Jessica was blocked, but I hadn't cut off the rest of the world. There were others, people who had no idea what had happened yet. Eventually, I picked up the device and unlocked the screen. 14 missed calls. 5 voicemails. 22 unread texts. I scrolled through the notifications, already knowing who they were from. My best friend, Mark. My sister, Emily. Even Jessica's mother. She had already begun damage control. I played the first voicemail, and Mark's voice came through sharp, urgent, full of concern. Dude, what the hell is happening? Jessica's been blowing up my phone, saying you overreacted? That you stormed off in some kind of rage? Call me back. Now. I let out a dry laugh. Typical. The moment she lost control of the situation, she started rewriting the narrative. I played the next voicemail. This time it was Emily. Hey, I just heard from Jessica. She said you left without warning and won't talk to her. That doesn't sound like you. Call me, please. I shook my head. She was good. I had to give her that. Twisting the story, painting herself as the victim before I even had the chance to explain. I scrolled through my messages. Jessica's mom, I don't know what happened between you two, but she's devastated. Please talk to her. Mark, call me. Seriously. Jessica, please, just come home. We can fix this. I stared at the screen, at the carefully crafted apologies, the manipulation hidden behind concerned words, the lies placed just right. She was trying to shape the story before I could, but I wasn't going to let her. I tapped Mark's number and brought the phone to my ear. He answered on the first ring. What the hell is going on? He demanded. I exhaled slowly. She's lying to you, Mark. There was a pause. Then quieter, tell me everything. So I did. I told him about the late nights, the unanswered questions, the doubt that had been creeping in for months. I told him about the texts, the camera, the way I had watched her invite another man into our home like I had never even mattered. By the time I finished, Mark was silent. Then finally he let out a low Jesus. Yeah. She's telling everyone you just left like you had some kind of breakdown or something. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she is. Mark muttered a curse under his breath. She's been messaging everyone, making it sound like you just lost it. Like this is all some huge misunderstanding. I clenched my jaw. It's not a misunderstanding when you watch your wife cheat on you in real time. He let out a slow breath. What do you want me to do? I thought for a moment. Tell the truth. If she wants to spin a story, I'll give her the real one. You got it. A pause. What's your next move? Leaning back against the motel headboard, I stared at the ceiling. I'm filing for divorce. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Filing for divorce should have felt like a big, weighty decision, the kind of thing that made you sit in your car, staring at the courthouse, questioning everything. But it wasn't. I walked in, filled out the paperwork, and handed it over as easily as if I were returning something I had never really wanted in the first place. The clerk barely looked at me as she stamped the forms. She'll be served within the next few days. Do you want to notify her yourself, or should we send someone? I almost laughed. The thought of Jessica opening the door, expecting reconciliation, only to be met with divorce papers? Send someone, I said. Stepping outside into the bright daylight, I checked my phone again. The group chat with my friends had exploded. Mark, holy sh*t, dude. Emily, you weren't lying. I just saw the footage. I feel sick. Matt, she was laughing with him. Bro, what? Lena, I hope you sent the papers already because there's no coming back from this. I smirked. Sent. Mark, good. Because she is losing her mind right now. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? Emily, she's calling everyone. First, she was playing the victim. But now she's saying you're ruining her life. I scoffed. Ruining her life? She did that herself. Matt, dude, she's furious. She said you didn't even give her a chance to talk before you filed. A grin tugged at my lips. Oh, you mean like the conversation she had with Ethan before sneaking him into my bed? Lena, exactly. Stay strong. She's gonna try something. I already knew that. Jessica was the type of person who needed control. And the moment she realized she had none, she would lash out. I didn't have to wait long. Not even an hour later, an unknown number flashed across my screen. You won't find another person like me again. I smiled. That's exactly the point. And with that, I ended the call. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were officially delivered. Jessica's reaction was immediate. My phone began buzzing within minutes. I ignored every call. When she realized I wasn't answering, she switched to different numbers. I blocked them all. Then came the emails, long, emotional, and filled with dramatic pleas. She accused me of overreacting, of throwing away something special, of destroying her life. I didn't bother reading them, they went straight to the trash. When those attempts failed, she reached the final stage, desperation. She showed up at my workplace. I had seen it coming. That morning, Mark had given me a heads up. She's still trying to control the story, he had warned. Be ready. Sure enough, right around lunchtime, I spotted her through the office window. She stood outside, arms wrapped around herself, looking fragile. Pitiful, even. I let out a deep sigh, debating whether to ignore her completely. But I was done running. Without hesitation, I stepped outside, keeping my expression unreadable. As soon as she saw me, she gasped, as if genuinely shocked that I wasn't a broken mess without her. Hey, she greeted, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear like nothing had happened, like she hadn't spent the last 2 weeks trying to twist the narrative to her favor. I remained silent. She swallowed hard before speaking again. Can we talk? I shoved my hands into my pockets. There's nothing left to talk about. She flinched as if I had physically struck her. I just don't understand how you can be so cold about this. Tilting my head slightly, I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Cold? I repeated. You cheated on me. Lied to me. Spent months making me question everything. And now you want to talk about feelings. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and for a moment I almost rolled mine. Please, she whispered, stepping closer. I know I made a mistake. But can't we at least try? I studied her for a long moment before reaching into my pocket and pulling out my phone. A few taps on the screen and I found what I was looking for, the video. Then I hit play. Her own voice filled the air. Soft. Eager. Unmistakable. Yeah, he just left. No, we're good. You can come now. Jessica's face turned ghostly pale. Her breath hitched as she watched herself commit the very betrayal she had been trying so hard to downplay. Keeping my voice steady, I said, that wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I shook my head. You lost, Jessica. You don't get to rewrite the story now. A single tear slipped down her cheek. I didn't let her finish. Goodbye, Jessica. And with that, I turned and walked away for good.